All right, let's get started on the Fontina Cauliflower Mac and Cheese. Mackenthun. Anyways, okay, so what we have to assemble this mac and cheese recipe, we have half a head of cauliflower, we have 4 tablespoons of butter, half an onion, some garlic, some fresh thyme that we don't need to mince. We're gonna leave it in whole form. I'll show you why later. Fontina cheese. This is the key ingredient to making the creamiest mac and cheese, especially when you're using vegetables like cauliflower, or it's October, we want to use delicata squash. Recommend you try it with that too. This will keep it smooth and creamy and mac and cheesy. And then for these 2 options, if you are gluten sensitive or need a gluten-free option, we have flour here that we're going to use to make something called a roux. You could also use cassava or oat flour, like gluten-free oat flour. And then for the pasta, Mackenthun actually carries like a wide variety of chickpea pasta or alternative pastas. So if you're looking to add more protein into your pasta, if you're looking for a gluten-free option, if you're sensitive to an ingredient, we probably have it on the shelves. So, and then we have some milk. All right, let's get started, everybody. We're gonna get started on medium-high heat in just a small pan. It doesn't need to be too huge. We're just looking to basically cook the cauliflower and aromatics, and we're adding a little bit of butter into the pan. It's just about a tablespoon to get things going so that we can fully coat the aromatics and the cauliflower in fat before adding the milk for the cheesy sauce. And then when your butter is mostly all melted up, we're gonna add a little bit of either smoked or Hungarian paprika. Mackenthun also has their own spice line, which makes it super easy to get really fragrant herbs and spices. We'll just coat, or not coat, but we're basically just combining the spices into the fat so that when we go to start putting our aromatics in there, it'll all be coated in the paprika. All right, next thing that goes in, we're gonna add a bunch of fresh thyme. We're adding the full sprigs in. All I'm doing is tearing them in half. And then that's gonna be another really good aromatic for our cheese sauce. Hear that sizzle? That means it's time to add in the garlic. We minced it ahead of time, but if you want a tutorial on how to mince garlic, we do have a short video kind of going through the process that might help you out. Time to add the next aromatic, which is the onion. Both of these are called alliums, and they are such good ingredients to consume throughout the fall season. Easy to use, easy to play with, and they add a ton of flavor to whatever you're cooking. We're looking to get the onion to be about translucent, so it might take a second, maybe like 30 seconds to a minute before you add in the star of our cheese sauce, which is the cauliflower florets. We just got to the translucent stage. And now to cook this cauliflower, we're just adding milk. So kind of like what you would do with a stew, you want your main vegetable, your protein, whatever you're cooking, you want it to kind of be totally enveloped in the fat. So we're gonna make sure the cauliflower is nice and coated. And then when it's all coated with the paprika infused butter, all we have to do at this point is add the milk in. And we just wanna add enough milk so that it comes to just the top of the cauliflower, which in this case, got it right on the money. It's pretty much perfect. If you need to add more, if you need a little bit less, use your best judgment. Never just dump something in a recipe because it tells you to. So now we're gonna bring this up to a simmer, plop a lid on it, and we're gonna let it simmer for 30 minutes. As many as you can. If you get a few in there, as long as they're not too woody, it shouldn't be too big of an issue. But if you wanna get a majority of them out, and then after that, all you're gonna do is scoop the cauliflower into your blender. You want to leave all of the liquid inside of your pot because we're only gonna add the liquid as needed to make the sauce creamy. We don't want the sauce too liquidy. Liquidy mac and cheese does not sound appetizing. We want rich and flavorful and creamy. notice that it almost started to turn yellow by itself, and that's due to the paprika. So if you want more of a yellowy mac, or if you've got some kind of picky eaters at home and you're really trying hard to integrate a healthy ingredient into some of their favorite foods, a good idea would be to add some paprika into your cauliflower mac. From here, we're just gonna take all of the solids that we cooked in the milk, place the lid on top of the blender, screw on the base if you're not struggling with it, and then I like to give my blender a little bit of a shake. If you have one that sits right side up, you can omit that step. All right, from there, we're gonna blend it until it stops blending. Give it another shake, or if you have a large blender and you're running into issues, just stick one of your rubber spatulas down in the center and just kind of unclog it a few times. Cauliflower is a very starchy vegetable, so that can be a bit of an issue. All right, that's good. It was fully swirling all the way to the top, which is what we like to see for our purees. Look at that. It is a bit thick. At this stage, it would definitely be considered more of a puree and not necessarily a sauce. So we are gonna add a little bit of this flavorful liquid that the cauliflower was cooking in back into the blender. All right. Whenever dealing with hot sauces, liquids in a blender, make sure that you kind of crack it open first. Let the air or the hot air escape from the blender before twisting it completely off. It can potentially explode at you. Just a little fun fact. All right. This is the perfect consistency. It's gonna coat the mouth without being too much on the palate and not too liquidy. So we can make sure that it's just gonna go into the mac and cheese, coat the noodles, and do everything that a cheesy sauce should. Let's finish this sauce. Okay, we're gonna turn the heat back on. We have a clean pan to work with. We're gonna turn the heat on to medium-high again, and then we're gonna take the puree that we just made, put it in the pot. It's already pretty hot and steamy. So we're just gonna add in the Fontina right away. Say you made this sauce the day before and you wanted to add the cheese in the day after. You could absolutely do that. Just make sure that the sauce is warm or like pretty hot before adding the cheese in. Otherwise you'll just have like cheesy chunks in a puree, and nobody likes that. All right, we're gonna use our Fontina cheese. And then what I like to do is just rip the block apart. So we're just gonna rip it apart with our thumbs. You can control how cheesy you wanna make the sauce. I'm a pretty cheesy person, just in general. So we're gonna add the whole block in. Please come back for the bad jokes. All right. All we have to do now, mix in our cheese, and then as soon as the cheese comes together with the sauce, we are ready to put it on our pasta. For pasta, if you're not familiar with pre-cooking your pasta and then adding your sauce into it, because that's what we did in this case. We already cooked our pasta and we're just gonna toss the two together. So if you haven't done that before, I would highly recommend cooking the pasta for a little bit less time than it says on the box or the instructions, maybe by a minute or two. And what that's gonna do, it's gonna get the pasta to a state called al dente, which is to the tooth. And it basically is just slightly raw on the inside of the noodle, so that when you add the hot sauce on top of the pasta to heat it up, it'll finish cooking the pasta. So our sauce is completed. We're gonna add it onto our pasta. I do also really love to make a yellow version of this sauce with delicata squash. So if you were to go that route, there would be an extra step. You would want to put the sauce back into the pan and add a roux in. And if you've never made a roux, we have a beautiful short on how to make a roux in our YouTube video, so go check that out. Otherwise, let's pour it over the pasta and eat. I don't know about you, but smelling cheese for too long just makes me ravenous. I'm very excited for this. I also lightly oiled the pre-cooked pasta beforehand so that it was lubricated, and notice how the noodles aren't sticking together? That's exactly why I did it. The oil helped the noodles stay separate so that when you add the sauce, all you really have to do is fold it a few times and you have a beautiful dish. All right, let's plate it up and try it. All right, our mac and cheese is all done, but before we try it, I want to talk about what we're pairing it with. We're using an Axbridge wine. It's bottled in Minneapolis, and they're just really focused on bringing local agriculture and connecting it with good wine, and really like going into that. Anyways, super tasty Chardonnay option. It goes great with the creaminess of the mac and cheese. It cuts it down just a little bit. Anyways, all right, so we're drinking that. Let's try the mac and cheese. If you like comfort food, this is where it's at. Okay, now you have to make it. Have fun doing it.